Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. You are watching and listening to Historian Radio's Echoes of the News, and I am Muhammad Hussain Qazi, and these are today's headlines from the past. On this day, the 21st of October 1805, at the Battle of Trafalgar, Admiral Lord Nelson gave his famous signal, "England expects," which flew from the HMS Victory at around 1100 hours, or after 1100 hours, according to varying resources. And the British would win this important battle against the French naval forces, which sought to occupy the English Channel and launch a mainland invasion of the United Kingdom. And so, this significant and historic defense is remembered and commemorated each day as part of the celebrations of Nelson Day or Trafalgar Day that commemorates the anniversary of this historic event. Continuing on the topic of military operations, in 1934, on the 21st of October, Mao Zedong's Long March with his 100,000 strong communist army began after fighting their way out of the siege mounted by Chiang Kai-shek's nationalist armies in Fujian. This historic rerouting of forces in the form of a semicircle would come to an end on the 20th of October, as discussed in yesterday's broadcast, in the northern area of Yan'an in northern China, and it would end on the 20th of October 1935. Continuing on this very day, in 1940, Ernest Hemingway's For Whom the Bells Toll was published in New York, a novel expanding on the, among other themes, the grim themes of war and loss in war. And so this would be remembered as one of Ernest Hemingway's most significant and iconic novels. And continuing on this day, in 1960, the Dreadnought, the first British nuclear submarine, was launched. This would be a significant moment in the history of the Cold War, as Britain would take its place as one of the few countries to acquire nuclear power as a means of powering their naval vessels. And furthermore, to further the topic of naval defense, in 1967, Egyptian missiles sank the Israeli destroyer Eilat off the coast of the Sinai with the loss of over 40 lives, a significant defeat inflicted upon the Israelis by the Egyptians. And finally, on this very day, to take a brief break from the grim realities of war, in 1984, Niki Lauda became the world motor racing champion for the third time. Niki Lauda is one of the most historic names in the history of contemporary motorsport racing. Well, actually, motorsport and racing as a branch of it. And on that note, we conclude this section and we move on to the next and much awaited section of our show, where we recount the famous births and deaths of famous figures from the 19th and 20th centuries and sometimes earlier. Born on this day, the 21st of October 1760, was Katushka Hokusai. Forgive me if I have mispronounced the name. He was a Japanese painter, wood engraver, and a master printmaker who became one of the greatest Japanese artists in the history of Japanese art. He is best remembered for his painting the 36 views of Mount Fuji. And on the topic of famous artists, we also mark the birth of Samuel Taylor Coleridge, which took place on this day in 1772. Samuel Taylor Coleridge, best remembered for his poems like From Fears and Solitude to The Muse, and many such poems, was one of the not pallbearers per se, but one of the most significant poets in the history of English literature, and he was associated with the Romantic movement. And unfortunately, on this day in 1931, Arthur Schnitzler, Austrian playwright best known for La Ronde, would pass away. His death would be mourned by all those who appreciate the Austrian play known as La Ronde, which was written in 1896. And on that unfortunate note, we conclude today's headlines of the day. You are watching and listening to Historian Radio's Echoes of the News, and I am Muhammad Hussain Qazi, and these were the headlines of today as history first heard them. Good night.